right, welcome everybody to tonight's activities here. This is our city council meeting night, but we do have a public hearing that we're going to take care of first, which should just take a few minutes here before we get into the regular city council meeting. So today is Tuesday, January 16th, 2024, and I'll call this public hearing to order. It has to do with the taxi fare increase. And in attendance, you can take roll, or should I? Yeah, and Barb will take roll. Thanks, sorry.
Sure. Brian Smith,
Here.
Colin Dykstra,
Here.
Paul Hagan,
Here.
Henry Velliker,
Here.
Scott Perchatsky,
Here.
Dave Peterson,
Here.
Paul Mayo,
Here.
Dimitri Martin, Corey Nagel,
Here.
Eric Olson.
Here.
8 present. We have a quorum.
All right, thanks, Barb. As I said, this has to do with the taxi fare increase, and we're going to have Stephanie Reif give us the purpose of this public hearing.
Sounds good. Thank you. So the purpose of this hearing, as Mayor Smith just mentioned, is proposing the Waupaca taxi fare increases. As noted in the public notice, the city is considering these fares to help offset the increase in the service charges tied to our new contract with Brown Cab. This change is scheduled to go into effect on February 1st if voted for.
All right, thank you. Hearing that, we are ready to take testimony. So if we have anybody in the audience that would like to give testimony in favor of the taxi fare increase, please step up to the podium, give your name and address for the record, and limit your time at the podium to 3 minutes or less. Anybody that would like to give testimony in favor of? Any testimony in favor? If not, do we have any testimony in opposition? Any testimony in opposition? Hearing none, I'll declare that this hearing closed at 6:02 p.m. And next up, as soon as Barb is ready here, we will go right into the regular city council meeting. And again, welcome everybody to tonight's city council meeting. It is Tuesday, January 16th, 2024, 6:03 p.m. I'll call this meeting to order by the saying of the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And we'll have Barb read the clerk's open meeting statement.
This meeting and all meetings of the Common Council are open to the public. Proper notice has been posted and given to the media in accordance with Wisconsin state statutes, so the citizens may be aware of the time, place, and agenda of this meeting.
And Barb, would you take roll also?
Brian Smith,
Here.
Colin Dykstra,
Here.
Paul Hagan,
Here.
Henry Velliker,
Here.
Scott Perchatsky,
Here.
Dave Peterson,
Here.
Paul Mayo,
Here.
Dimitri Martin. No? Oh, I thought that was him. Corey Nagel,
Here.
Eric Olson.
Here.
8 ayes, we have a quorum.
All right, and Barb, do you want to also start the introductions of the department heads?
Barb Nowak, City Clerk.
Aaron Jensen, City Administrator.
Matt Klatt, Airport Manager.
Eric Bailey, Library Director.
Jared Kivla, Community and Economic Development.
Stephanie Reif, Finance Director.
Justin Behrens, Director of Public Works.
Brian Hosell, Chief of Police.
Is Laura online?
She is.
Yeah. Yeah, and Laura Colbert is online tonight with us. And of course, Josh is behind the curtains as normal, working the cameras. So we have a complete staff here tonight. We have the consent agenda. Again, remember the consent agenda is for all of the items that are listed below on the agenda, unless you'd like to see one of those items moved to the regular agenda, where we would discuss and take a motion individually on those items. If you're okay with the consent agenda as printed, we would need a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Olson, second by Peterson, that we approve the agenda, the consent agenda as printed. Discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against, say no. Motion carried. Under the regular agenda, before we approve that regular agenda, if you'll notice under the, at the end of the meeting, under issues and project discussion, we have a presentation by the International Cultural Exchange Committee. We're going to do that right away at the beginning of the meeting here. So if you don't mind, we'll just move that item up. Otherwise, the regular agenda is as printed. I don't think we need to make any changes here. So again, looking for a motion to approve.
I'd move to approve as amended. Second.
Motion by Hagan, second by Perchatsky, that we approve the agenda with that one amendment. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against, say no. Oh, sorry, Dimitri, I'll slow down there. Motion carried. All right, under announcements and correspondence, under public input, is Liz on? She didn't? Okay. All right, we'll move, okay, so we'll go to public input. This is for non-agenda items. Anybody in the audience or staff or council that would like to speak on a non-agenda item, please step up to the podium, give your name and address for the record. Limit your time again at the podium till 3 minutes or less. Any non-agenda public input you would like to give us? All right, let's,
I have one.
oh, I'm sorry, Colin.
That's fine.
Yep, go ahead.
I wanted to point out to everybody this terrific exhibit that we have at the library this week, well, this month, I guess, related to the Charles Schulz Museum and Snoopy. And the exhibit is in the basement of the library and describes how a character was added to the Charles Schulz Peanuts comic strip. In 1968, the character was Franklin. He was the first black character to be introduced into that scene. I was not alive at that time, but you could say that that time of our country was quite divided. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated 2-3 months prior in April. Robert Kennedy was also assassinated that year, about a month and a half prior to this introduction. There was a woman, a teacher, who wrote to Charles Schulz and suggested that he add this character, and he was quite reluctant to do so, not in any sort of negative way, but that he thought he would be patronizing to that community. And the exhibit has those letters that were written to Charles Schulz, and I think it's a really terrific exhibit for our community, and to realize and to go in and to see it, and especially some of the words that some of the letters have in it, I think are equally applicable today as we deal with, still to this day, what I would call, and what is one of the writers call racial enmity, E-N-M-I-T-Y, which is enmity. I had to look this one up. It's a state of being actively opposed or hostile to someone or something. This can go either way for any race, any direction. And he was hoping that adding this character in such a nonchalant and just everyday way would lead to more racial amity, which is a friendly relationship between all of our races. And anyway, I think that history showed that Franklin's addition was a great addition to that comic strip. And I'd like to appreciate Liz Kinnear for getting this for our library director, the Friends of Waupaca Library, and everyone else who contributed to bringing this exhibit to our community. It's really a really great exhibit. For those of you who have kids, they've got a bunch of things you can do, activities you can do down there. And I'd suggest anyone at any age, run down there and check it out. Thank you.
All right, Colin, thank you. And thanks for promoting the library also. That's very nice. Anybody else? Any other public input? All right, under unfinished business, number one is, under the unfinished business is ordinance number 14-2023. This is an ordinance amending chapter 14 of the building code. It's the second reading. Jarrett, that's yours.
Thank you very much, Mayor. So this one can be found specifically on page 86 of your packets. So I would like to say, so we did have some internal discussions as well as some discussions with some council members. After those discussions, we feel like there is some minor modifications that we would like to do or at least evaluate before a second reading actually occurs. So what we're looking to do is just to see if we can table it for this meeting and bring it back on February 6th.
All right. So that's a recommendation coming from Jarrett. We would need a motion to table this ordinance and take it up at our next regular scheduled meeting, which is February 6th, right? Yep. February 6th.
I would make that in the form of a motion.
I'll second it.
Motion by Hagan, second by Dykstra, that we table this ordinance and bring it back at our next meeting. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against, say no. Motion carried. Next, I missed department head reports. Sorry, I didn't intentionally do that, but I think we're gonna muddle through these things and we'll see what we have and maybe do them later in the meeting if you don't mind. Next up, we have ordinance number, do we want to do the Japanese right now? Can we do that?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's just stop right now and introduce the people that ended up going over to Montoya City. So we have a presentation on the International Cultural Exchange Committee's visit to our sister city, Montoya City, Japan. And I'm going to have Aaron actually set this up and introduce them.
Thank you, Mayor Smith. So, Council, I have been talking with Brooklyn Minton as one of the students, and not even really a student anymore. She's getting older, or I should say a higher education student. And then a chaperone, Becky Legal. And so those, I'm going to have you guys set this up. Brooklyn actually came in to me a couple weeks ago, sometime around Christmas, and she made this amazing and probably had help doing so. Kind of a book outlining their trip to our sister city in Japan, and wanted to share some of their experiences, what they learned. I thought it was really, really neat, and we talked about how it would be neat to share that at the city council. So that's what they're here to do. I think they have about a 10 to 15 minute presentation that they'd like to give, and with that, I'll turn it over to you guys.
Before we start, this is a gift from the mayor of Montoya City.
Oh,
We gave them and they gave us. So a little bit about that. That is a tamari ball. Tamari balls are handmade by women
hope
in
it's not
Japan.
breakable.
It's not, you're good.
Okay.
The box is collapsible too, so it fit very nicely in
All
my
right.
way overstuffed suitcase. So it's a tamari ball. Inside are rice hulls.
good.
They wrap the rice hulls in rice paper, and then they consecutively wrap the rice ball and make it softball size or baseball size. And then they hand stitch after they hand dye all of the yarn. So that is a crane that we watched the lady make some of them while we were there. And so that is a tamari ball from the Montoya City. So there's that part of it.
That's cool. Did we send?
We did. All right. You can tell me when to move through the slides, Brooklyn, all right?
Can you, you're tall too, so pull that microphone up a little bit there, and girl.
Can you move onto the next slide?
Yes, I can.
So that's my host family. I'm obviously a lot taller than them. And I also got to meet up with the student we hosted back in 2019 and met her mom. That's a safari that I got to visit. And that's a bullet train. I was so excited to be on one of those. And it's Hello Kitty themed because Hello Kitty is very popular over there.
Brooklyn, you told me a little bit about that bullet train. How fast does that bullet train go?
About 200 miles an hour.
I'll do Elsa. We thought we were at the end of the program, so the Furquettes will be here. They'll just be here late. So this is Elsa's. Elsa was our youngest member. She was 13. And so she's the little one in the center. She is Fisher Furquette's sister, and Fisher was the next one. So this is her host family. Their cars are super tiny, so trying to fit Brooklyn or Gracie or Lily or me into any of those cars was quite interesting. You can click to the next one. We all got yukatas. That is Elsa's yukata. They're a summer kimono, and they took great pride in getting us dressed up for our formal dinner that we had, and so all of our host moms totally geeked out, and I mean, they tie you tight. You are not gonna get out of this yukata. And so it's kind of funny because Brooklyn's so tall, so all of ours, mine had a 2-foot fold on it because I'm not as tall as Brooklyn, and so Brooklyn's was straight down to the floor. So that was our traditional yukata dress. So that's Elsa's. And then I think Fisher's next. So this is Fisher's. So Fisher is Elsa's brother. Fisher has a happy coat on. Those are the jackets that we wore for the dragon parade when we all got drenched from head to toe because they're trying to quench the dragon. Fisher had 2 host brothers, I believe. And then this is the Vine Bridge. Gracie was able to go on this as well. And she can explain more about it, but it is a bridge completely made of vines.
So my host family consisted of Masato, Mari, Koharu, and Kanta. I had one host sister and one host brother. Right from the start when we got there, there were city people there, all of the families were there, they were waiting for us, and it was really cute, and I felt very welcomed. On the bottom left is it's the Unpenji ropeway, which is this big, cable car in the air that takes you up to this big Shinto shrine at the top of a mountain, which was very cool to see because I've never been on anything like it, and I've never heard of anything similar in the United States. And then the Kazurabashi Vine Bridge that my mom was talking about previously is the first picture on the top left, and that is a vine bridge that they remake every year with natural, I forgot the plant they use, but it's all natural vines, and they only have 2 metal support systems that go through, but the rest of it they hand weave each year for visitors. And then on the bottom right is my host sister Koharu and I in our yukatas after we were cinched in and ready to go to the welcome party. The top right picture is a 5-story pagoda that was about 5 minutes from where I stayed at their house. And I was surprised to see that they just have all of these cultural buildings so close to them that they can access. Hiroshima. It was a very humbling experience. I tried not to cry through the entire thing. Because we were there around the anniversary. We were there 1 or 2 days prior to when they would have the anniversary. And they have this big ceremony. They were setting up for it. There were supposed to be all of these big people from around the world there. And it was very sad but also amazing to see how much they have built since that incident. So, a little bit about my experience. So the middle picture on the bottom with the deer, we went to the Deer Island. And I thought it was going to be a really great idea to lure one of the deers with me so they could walk with us. So I was tempting it with the paper, which I have at my house because it bit some off. So it's my souvenir. That's also us at Deer Island on the top right with that. We also went to this water festival with my host family, and so the kids would collect goldfish in the stream that they would put in, and it was a sort of charm for them. And then we also made, we painted those tigers, and they're a really traditional thing, so that was really neat. So a little bit about my host family. My host family had 9 kids, which coming to that, I was really nervous, but they were great. Like, normally, like here, I would be like, oh my gosh, like someone has 4 kids, like that's terrifying. They had 9, and it seemed like my host mom, she's on the bottom right. She did such an amazing job. All of her kids, I had such great connections with them. All my host sisters, they were truly family to me, and I had so many experiences. I might not have gone a lot of places like some of the other people did, but because I had such a great connection with all those people, it just made that trip really worthwhile. So.
My trip to Japan, this was actually my first time ever on a plane. So it was kind of a long flight for me. It's 12 hours to Tokyo, and then we flew from Tokyo to Osaka, which was an hour flight, so quite an experience for my first flight. And then next slide. Then when we were there, we got to climb Mount Shidu, and because they had a sightseeing balcony there for us to take pictures, which was a very cool experience to like walk up all the trails that have been made, and then they had some other like attraction spots on the way up, which was yep. And then we got to go up to these different shrines and temples, which these are some views from our way up to it. So they had a bunch of shops and like other like a tourist attractions there that you could stop at and like go inside and shop. And then at the top of the hill was a shrine that we were able to visit and go through and look at all the different parts of it. And then here was some of the temple. Here was one of the temples that we saw, which you were able to go in, and then you had to kneel on a mat, and then you kneeled to drum, and you had to pray while you were there, which was one of the traditions that they had. And we also got to go to this school and meet with some of the students there, which they played badminton. And they played ping pong, which they're pretty good. They're pretty good at pretty much everything. So, and then here's some of the. This is one of the students that on the top right was in 2019. That was the kid that I hosted. He's about a year younger than me, but we were able to meet up and we were able to talk about some of the memories we made. And then the bottom middle picture is one of my aunt's host family, one of her host brothers, which he really enjoyed meeting me, and I enjoyed meeting him, and we were able to make a lot of new memories.
I'm Lindsay. I'm actually Logan's aunt. I'm the one who kind of forced him into this, but he's thankful. So one of the days we had some family time.
Lindsay, can you pull the mic down now?
Sure. I don't know what you mean. So sorry, I'm Lindsay. So my family, we had a couple of days where we did just stayed with your host family, and one of the days my host family, their friends came over to visit. So this was us. My dad makes these penny games, these penny drop games. So I brought a couple of those. I brought tic-tac-toe, and they didn't know about tic-tac-toe or anything. So it was really cool to be able to teach them some of our traditions and the things that we do here in the games that we play. So this was me and my host mom and her daughter and her mom's friend and her 2 daughters playing the penny drop game. And they had, when I got to the home, they had all these balloons and welcome signs. It was very, very welcoming. So next. And then that's on the bottom left is my host dad, and the right. That's my host dad. He's actually a Buddhist monk, and I got to live in a temple for a week, and it was pretty phenomenal. And he's actually a calligraphy teacher as well. And the kids are off technically in the summer, even though some of them have to go to classes and such, but they still have homework they have to do throughout the summer. And part of the homework is to practice their calligraphy. So we had calligraphy class and this is in the actual temple room. And the dad in the right, he did that calligraphy, and that is actually the name of one of the ancestral Buddhist monks, and he presented me with that beautiful frame with the writing that he had done, and in the middle it was some of my calligraphy practice. So next. And then my family actually took me to a museum it's called Marugami Uchiwa, and it's the art and tradition of making Japanese fans. And so the guy in the middle was making the middle bamboo and slicing the bamboo into pieces and then slicing that into little pieces in order to make the fan. And then on the right is my host mom making, I had 2 host brothers, a host mom and a host sister and dad. And this is my host mom. She took one of the brothers and the sister and we all got to go make fans. And then they each made a fan and they sent them all home with me, which was pretty cool. And this is the one that I made on the left side. Next. And it was pretty cool. They took me to McDonald's once because they said about let's do a little America and Japan. And then on the top right, the bugles. I don't know if you guys remember bugles, and they put them on their fingers just like we did as kids. So it was kind of neat to see a little bit of America and Japan. Next. And then just the history and traditions of the top right, when you walk through some of the temples and shrines, there's these bells. And then on the bells, there's these pieces of paper, and then they blow in the wind, and it's just this cacophony of bells and sound, and it's just beautiful. And then, you have to, before you go into a temple, you have to wash your hands. So there were a lot of different fountains there to wash your hands in. And it was just pretty neat and amazing to see all the different history and tradition that they have. Next. And then this is the last one. Bottom right is my family that I lived with, and the middle is kind of the shrine, and in there's a Buddhist statue about this big, and he is over 1,000 years old. The Buddha, and the last name is Mori, and this was the Mori shrine in the Mori temple. And then the top right is the actual outside of the temple, and then to the left of it was a house that they built later on, and that's where the family lives. But I stayed on the right side in the temple in a prayer room. I slept on a tatami mat on the floor. And then the left side is just Dad playing the ukulele. They made Wagyu beef for me and just all these beautiful appetizers, and they just dote on you, and pretty amazing experience. So, and Dad even cried when I left. He's like, I don't want you to go. And you really do build lifelong friendships. We go back and forth a couple times a month still since August, and they check up on me, I check up on them, so it's pretty neat. So that's me. Now Becky.
So from the moment we got off the plane, Yukari, who's in the next slide, treated us absolutely like royalty. We traveled around Japan with at 1 or 2 or even 3 people from the city. The city photographer followed us around and took all of our photographs. We were given shirts, and it's so blasted hot there that you need to literally have a towel around your neck the entire time everywhere you go. So we got towels, we got bottles of water, we got calendars from the city. We were given everything. If our my host mom packed my suitcase so full, I wasn't quite sure I was going to make it. In fact, I had to have an extra bag just with stuff. They're like, "You want it? We buy it. We buy it." And then she took stuff out of her cupboard. These are the most amazingly generous people I have ever met. I still email her. We do WhatsApp. I message her at least every week. That's Mickey on the bottom with Aimu and Tetsu. I think the most powerful thing for me as a mom, I got to go with both of my girls. When we had the dinner where all of our host families get together, 3 of the fathers stood up because they have to say why they wanted to do it. All of our host families were new. They'd never done it before. And 3 of the dads said, I want my children to know that relationships with other people matter. And that was why they wanted to host some white people from Waupaca. I mean, I can't tell you, walking through Hiroshima, like 3 days before the anniversary, you can't imagine how that feels to be walking with people who were directly, generationally traumatized because of that event, and not one of them gave us a look of angst. We're standing there, these giant white people sobbing, walking through this museum because you can see tricycles. You can see all of these artifacts from Hiroshima. And these people just looked at us and they just smiled. I don't know that they would get that if they came here, but it's pretty humbling to have someone, complete strangers look at us, and there are people from all over the world. So we go there specifically for this. This is their dragon. It's longer than this room. It's insurmountably heavy, and then they wet it with gobs and gobs of water when they throw it on us. And so there were 4 people on each side. I happened to be next to Lindsay, and if you see our height difference, that worked really well because we have to carry the dragon through town. So there were people from the community who partnered with us, and we had to do a little dance in between. So we walk the dragon down the street and then back up the street, and these little kids are standing there with shooters, and they shoot water at us, and they think it's so funny, and then they go and get more, and then they laugh and come back. So that part, I think, was amazing. Next one. So my host family and the girls and I on the left. This is Yukari on the far right. She is amazing. She can speak English like a champ. She is Japanese. She was our savior because not all of our Google Translate worked all the time. So Yukari made sure we had tablets for electrolytes because it was super hot, and she said most people come here and they down water. Well, you're going to get sick if you do that because your body's all out of whack. So they made sure we had these tablets. Take some more tablets, drink some more water. Yukari, phenomenal. She works for the city, and she actually does some of the photographs for the calendars. So I have to say, as a parent who watched these kids grow, kudos to having a sister city. We fundraised everything, so it was all on us, but this was really cool, and I can't wait to have them come back and share with them Waupaca. My host mom is so cute. She's like, well, how old are things in Waupaca? I said, well, we got the Hutchinson house from the 1800s. And she's like, oh, really? As we're standing in front of a temple that's, 600, 700 years old. So I think that part of watching these kids grow and come back more confident, more worldly, understanding that you can have different perspectives and that's okay, is really powerful. The Sister City program changed all of these kids' lives, and Lindsay and mine. Like, I use this in my class all the time. So I teach 4th grade. My kids know all about my trip to Japan, and that's how we get kids into our program. So this isn't just an elite group of people who get to go. You can join the club, you can help fundraise, and all of your opportunities come from us building up the program. So it is named by the city, but our group is self-fulfilling. So next slide, please. All right, Fisher and Elsa, do you want to share anything? They're both like, no. Gracie? You're the oldest. You get to take over. So we had talked last night, we had our meeting, and one of the things that we said was when they came to Waupaca last time, it was all funded based on, so we had dinner at the harbor, we had all of those things. we really want this to be a sister city thing. We really want the city to be part of this, because right now we're just this entity that kind of functions over here, and we come and give you your tamari ball, and life is good. But we would really like to, what's one of the things that we thought would be a good idea?
Having like more of a citywide welcome, and like just, I think it's important that when we went there, the city was so generous with what they gave us. We got stuff that would help us stay there for a week, and I feel like when they come, I feel bad because we give them a pound of cheese and.
So I think looking forward, and I think the other thing is their city funds everything, and so that's why they didn't send anybody back with us this last year. Commonly we go there and then they send kids back. Their city pays for everything, and that's not at all what I want. But if we could have something on the city website or something a little more proactive than, I didn't even know this group existed until Brooklyn's mom kept hounding me to join this Japan group. So I think we should be super proud that this exists. Like, this is a tremendous connection between two communities that really aren't that far different. So moving forward, we'd like to see how we could partner better with the city and see how we could actually be a sister city versus the Waupaca International Cultural Exchange Committee. But we appreciate you guys letting us come and share our experience with you. Did you have any questions?
What's the name of your group?
Waupaca International Cultural Exchange Committee, WICEC for short.
Well, that was an awesome presentation. Thank you.
Well, we're a little long-winded, sorry.
Well,
It's hard to pack 9 days into 15 minutes.
yeah. You are a teacher, so.
Yeah, I can.
Yeah, thank you very much for taking time to come in here tonight, and we do appreciate that, and we do appreciate being a sister city of Montoya City, and it's had its ebbs and flows. We were very strong at the beginning,
Absolutely.
and city participated, and maybe it takes someone like you people to bring it back to where it was before, and so.
We're gonna try.
Yeah, good for you. We're willing to work with you, but we need.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we need to work together.
Definitely. But this is great. Like, this is really, we should be very proud that this exists. Like, people have worked very hard to get this, and it's a very cool opportunity.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Feel free to stay if you want, but otherwise you can. You're not going to hurt our feelings if you decide to walk out. Yeah.
I just wanted to say to the group that probably 25 or so years ago, there was a presentation that similar to yours that was done here when I was on city council, and I said, I'm going to send both of our children to Japan, and which we did. And to this day, our daughter, Emily, is over in Japan as an English teacher because of this program. She just loved it so much.
All right. Well, thanks. All right, we need to move on here. Next up, we have ordinance number 15-2023. This is an ordinance amending section 3.05 of the municipal code relating to purchases, appropriations, and payroll. And this is the first, well, again, we're bringing it back, but it is the first reading. We're calling it the first reading again here. So, Aaron, you want to do this?
Yeah, thank you very much, Mayor Smith. On council members, on page 95 of the packet, you will see another memo outlining the first reading, again, the second first reading of this ordinance. We did get some comments and some input from city council, not only during the meeting, but then I did get some follow-up comments and input through email regarding this. Just a little background and a recap in case we don't remember the last time we did this. So we brought it back for a couple of reasons. One, we've had a number of unique situations in which we've had to kind of bypass what the ordinance has outlined specifically, and council has voted to allow us to move forward without a sealed bid process in these unique situations. So one of the things we were looking to do was to kind of protect against that, and the other thing was to create some efficiencies from a staffing standpoint. When we had it brought forward the last time, it was there was a suggestion to bring up the sealed bid requirement for non-public construction items to $100,000. After even just having conversations in the last 2 weeks, I can tell you that there are some things that have these unique circumstances that there might be just over $100,000. So that was not going to be something that was a catch-all. After considering some of the input, after kind of reconvening with Mayor Smith and reconvening with Attorney Sorensen, we decided to go a little different route, which is why we're bringing it back for a first reading again, because this is substantially different than the first time. But it's not necessarily substantially different from what the ordinance is currently. So what this does is it really keeps the requirement of going out to sealed bid for capital purchases over $25,000 that are public construction and non-public construction, but it did add language, and this is done specifically through Attorney Sorensen within the ordinance that kind of protects City Council's right to be able to waive that requirement should unique circumstances come up. And you can see what those are right here on page 96, and those are put in there directly from Attorney Sorensen. So really that would be all. So if this was brought forward in a second reading, and if it was ultimately passed, it would be focused on creating that protection, not necessarily changing our processes. I can tell you that in the last couple of weeks, there's another scenario in which there's an opportunity to buy a used vehicle that you don't necessarily spec out. It would be a more cost-effective route for the city, and it would work for the department, and it would be one of those scenarios that you kind of have to act fast, and this could come into play. So this is kind of where we're at today. Again, we're not voting on this. This is another first reading, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that any council members may have now or in the next couple weeks.
Yeah, if I can just piggyback on that, just so my feeling on reading this and what the direction that we want it to go in. When we give permission for them to not follow our ordinance, then we are in violation of our ordinances, and we want to make sure that we are not in violation of that. So what this ordinance does is it allows us the opportunity, we're doing it already, we just want to make sure we're doing it under the rules of our ordinances. So this just allows us the ability, when staff comes forward and asks us, and we think it's a viable and a good idea to do that we can feel that we're doing this and we're doing it according to our ordinances. So we really kind of, as I like to say, we really kind of dummied it down from the first version of this. It basically is the same as it was before. We're just making sure that council is covered by ordinances through this process. Simple as that. Henry, and we do want to thank you. It made us rethink about the process that we are going through on that, so appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you, Henry. And then I know, Demetria, if you're still online, appreciate the input via email.
Question.
Yeah, go ahead, Corey.
So you had brought this forward because you had expressed that there were some situations where you could have used more flexibility. Looking back on those situations, does this language, would that have helped you meet those situations more efficiently?
It does.
Okay.
Yes.
So this is the flexibility that you would need.
Yeah, correct.
Well, in Aaron's defense too, and I agree, it does give you more flexibility, but it also, I think knowing that we have 2 city council meetings a month, you know, we meet every other, except for this month, of course, but we meet every other week. And so if something does come up, we meet within 2 weeks' time. So normally, things can happen pretty quickly either way. So I don't know that we've ever really truly lost out by having the 2 meetings a month. Yeah.
And if worse came to worse, and it was a situation in which we wanted to lock in something that could save us tens of thousands of dollars, we could hold a special meeting.
Right.
It'd be worth it, yeah.
Exactly. Okay,
Mayor?
yeah, good question though, Corey. Yeah, Henry, go ahead.
Did you guys, excuse me, did you talk about raising the limit a little bit? Because I think, you know, I can appreciate the staff having some flexibility, because in today's world, there's not many things that are less than $25,000 that we're going to deal with.
We did, you know, and Attorney Sorensen was also fine with the version as it was written prior at that $100,000 mark, but ultimately, you know, actually, and Dimitri sent me some literature on, you know, some definitions and reasonings and causes for sealed bid versus unsealed bids versus quotes and the ability to negotiate and all those. And really, sealed bids are created really for public procurement. And I think if we have the time as department heads, and it's not an urgent matter in which it's going to be detrimental to the city, we can go through a sealed bid process and prepare that. Whether it's over $25,000 or over $40,000 or what it is. But when it doesn't make sense for the well-being of the city, this gives us that other option.
All right, so you can expect that you'll see this on our February 6th meeting. If you have any comments, appreciate if you get those to Aaron before the meeting so that we can have the ability to get them on the agenda.
Aaron, another question. So going back to what Henry, excuse me, had just suggested, what $25,000, is there a number that would be more appropriate that you would feel comfortable bringing to council to change that language?
To have a
and I don't know if that's something that, you know, people would be for, but as long as we're talking about this, is there a recommendation that you would have?
So I don't know if I'd have a specific recommendation. You know, the last one I brought forward was $100,000, so I had some level of comfort with that. I think it's a better question is maybe what is the council's comfort level on what that is. I know that you know, some don't even have, some communities are like this, you know, and they just follow what the public construction limits are as set by state statute for even non-public construction items. And some have the thresholds like we talked, and some don't have thresholds at all for the non-public construction. The reality is wherever we set that, we're gonna miss a bunch. You know, this specific thing that I mentioned that you may see in the near future, if we set it at 100, it wouldn't have covered that. So I'm comfortable with how it's written right now, coming forward to you.
I can tell you that in the past, we've had discussion on items like vehicles where it's been contentious. Sorry, we've had issues with it. I sound like radar now. But you know, I don't know there's any exact amount that you can put on there. You know, that's going to fit all. To tell you the truth, ultimately the council has to feel comfortable with whatever we come up with Go ahead, Scott.
I would be in favor of leaving this low because I think it gives the public the confidence that, you know, we're overseeing, this council's overseeing reasonably large expenditures of money. You know, it may be kind of out there and not the biggest priority maybe for some people, but I think overall to give our community confidence in us, I think it's good to keep this checks and balances in place.
Scott.
Anybody else? All right, well, take a look at it. See if you get any discussion from constituents in town, and we'll bring it up at the next meeting. This does not require a public hearing, so this will just come right back for us to discuss at the next meeting. All right, next up, we have ordinance number 01-2024. This is an ordinance repealing and recreating section 1226 of the Weights and Measures Programs fees. This is the second reading of that. Barb, this is your baby, so you want to just explain what we're doing here?
Sure. My memo can be found on page 97. And little background again, the program was started in 2001, and an ordinance was created at that time with the rates and everything. The City of Appleton comes and does our the devices licensing, and they would like to add a day, make it 23 days rather than 22 days a year, and the rate going from 446 a day to 460 per day. So that's a change of $768 from 2023. And so I just asked that the base rate for the license be changed from $40 to $50 to offset that, the cost difference. That's it. If anybody has any questions?
All right. Any comments? Questions? Barb, thank you for looking into that. That's help.
I make a motion that we adopt ordinance 01-24, making changes to our weights and measure program.
Second.
Here we have a motion by Henry, second by Corey, that we approve ordinance number 01-2024. Any discussion? Barb will call the roll.
Eric Olson,
Aye.
Corey Nagel,
Aye.
Dimitri Martin,
Aye.
Paul Mayo,
Aye.
Dave Peterson,
Aye.
Scott Perchatsky,
Aye.
Henry Veliker,
Aye.
Paul Hagan,
Aye.
Colin Dykstra.
Aye.
9 ayes, motion carried. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Barb. Okay, next up, under new business, we have Waupaca Churchill Street corridor, and we have Andrew Dane here tonight to show us what we've done on Churchill Street. Andrew?
All right, thank you. How long has the exchange program been going on, by the way? Just
1996, I think.
Yeah, 96.
Okay.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Nice.
Yep.
It's a neat program. I always notice all the stuff over there on the wall, so I was curious what.
Well, and she's, I know we don't want to get off on that, but she is so accurate on how their culture is so, and Paul would know this better than me or anybody, but on how they treat their guests versus how we treat their guests. And I don't know that they necessarily expect us to treat them the way we're treated when we go over there. But I do think, that we have kind of slacked off a little bit, and it would be nice to see that be brought up again, because it is such a neat program.
It's neat. Maybe in addition to the block of cheese, they could get a city calendar. Okay.
Well, they get a city pin.
Oh, that's so cool. So I thought I would, so I'm going to just talk through the highlights of this plan. Did anybody actually open this thing and skim through it a little bit? Don't even have to read it. Did anybody actually open it up? See a few nods, maybe a little bit. I've been working on this kind of over the past year with input from the DIRT staff, and we had the purpose of this study is really to take a look at this Churchill Street corridor as another potential redevelopment infill site within the city. I don't think there's any expectation from anyone that Churchill Street's going to become the next Main Street, downtown Main Street. But I think a lot of people recognize that there's some opportunity there to strengthen the corridor, and so we were tasked with kind of diving into it in a little bit more depth, and as part of that did a survey and developed some goals and some strategies that I'm just going to talk through here. They'll hopefully serve as kind of a guidepost for the city over the next 5 to 10 years as you're looking at revitalizing the corridor. Hopefully, documents like this can help attract outside funding, grant funding. Typically, having documents like this typically helps that considerably, whether it's public or private funding. And then also, I think documents like this can help attract outside investment and help put a good foot forward from the city, especially with all the work that's been done with branding and kind of enhancing the overall image of the city. So if you want to, you can, I won't belabor every single page here, but, just introduction and talks a little bit about the corridor in relationship to some of the other little commercial districts within the area and some of the major employers within the area, as well as the proximity and location of the neighborhood to the Crystal River, which I think came up as kind of a hot topic of discussion as we worked our way through this project. Next slide. Hopefully this doesn't bore out. Oh, it does. So I just kind of highlighted in here just some key forces and issues or issues and opportunities, as we look at the corridor from kind of a multidisciplinary approach, kind of looking at from an economic development perspective, land use perspective, mobility standpoint. One of the big things that jumped out to me in spending more time in the corridor over the last year was you just have those large daytime markets. So kind of talking, with the middle school, the early learning center, the Theta Care Medical Center, the county courthouse. You've got a big concentration of major employers down here, which I think is a huge asset to this corridor. And as it evolves over time, I think the corridor can probably do a little bit of better job of servicing the needs of the residents adjacent the corridor, but also the businesses, the major employers here that are drawing a lot of traffic to these anchor destinations, not just consumers and people seeking out those services, but then also the workers that are traveling into the community to stay, to do projects for places like the hospital. They need places to stay and live. Next slide. So that's just kind of an aerial. I should say, for those of you that it is a little confusing just because the layout of the area relative to the pages, and I did this on landscape mode. So the south is to the left. For those of you who are not completely intuiting this, there's Cary Pond in the middle, and then to the north is Royalton Street, Lakeman Field. That's heading downtown there with the Dollar General or dollar store at the corner there. So some images of the district. I think with H.H. Hinder and all the investment they put in there, and with the new dollar store, Dollar, is it Dollar Tree, or I'm forgetting so many times, Dollar General. Dollar General. It's got some, you've got some newer developments along the corridor, and then you have a bunch of properties that are sort of in flux. The hut, the parcel next to the hut, the food pantry there, that's kind of open some of the time. The build up buildings or sites, including the former Ruby's Pantry, the Agape Center, Agape owned that former assisted living or nursing home, whatever it was. So you've got kind of a corridor that's kind of in some transition, I think. Diving into this, one of the things that I thought was really interesting, and Tracy pulled together some history, this being Waupaca, had to mine the history a little bit. But I thought some of the history behind the Shannock Foundry I thought was really fascinating. And this corridor and the foundry, the Shannock Foundry down there, was a major supplier into the automotive parts industry through the Depression and helped provide a lot of working class jobs and power the economy through the Depression, and played an important role in the evolution of the city in terms of its relationship to the foundry and the automotive industry. And the building is still there and could potentially at some point in the future maybe be adaptively reused into something else, or could serve as it's a very unique location with the water. That's one of the sites, maybe long-term, could be an exciting redevelopment opportunity. The businesses, get a really neat mix of businesses in here that, and I probably didn't get all of them there, but just kind of gives you a sense. A lot of personal services down at the Crystal Plaza area. You've got a lot of those personal professional services, tattoos, salons, little yoga kind of tanning place, things like that. And then you've got, more of like with Nelson's in the middle there, kind of a, being the former State Highway 22 was a little bit more auto-oriented. Nelson's Garage still is in operation, but not quite as busy as maybe it was in previous years. And then you have a mix of some little, office uses, some restaurants, and so it's got a nice little mix of neighborhood-oriented businesses that exist along there, and I think it could probably continue down that path as we find new sites to do infill development into the future. The mix. This is just the land use map, kind of over the different colors, sort of underscore just the mixed use character of the district, with that kind of mix of institutional, residential, commercial, some light industrial. So it's already kind of a mixed use neighborhood as it stands today. And that orange stuff is multifamily. So you've got several little, what I call still like low to medium density apartment buildings and smaller 8-plexes, 4-plexes, might be one 12-plex in there, providing rental housing. Next slide. Again, just kind of took a look at some land use precedents from the future land use map, from the comprehensive plan a few years ago, looked at the kind of zoning in there. It's a little bit of a hodgepodge, kind of understanding the context of this site. But when we did the comprehensive plan, we kind of envisioned this could be a little bit more emphasis on a neighborhood mixed use district that could support both commercial retail, but also some infill housing as the city seeks to address workforce issues as well. In terms of mobility, took a look at, this is from yet another study that we did a few years ago. I think East Wisconsin Regional Planning did for the city. This was the bike and ped plan, kind of showing some long-term bicycle connections. So tried to look at these different plans and see what they kind of called for, what it describes, presents as an opportunity for the corridor. In this case, we think one of the opportunities is to kind of stitch this bicycle network together right in the middle of the city and kind of connect a lot of these little trail segments from the River Edge Trail system together through this corridor. Talk a little bit about that later on. From a wayfinding standpoint, that's just kind of looking at the wayfinding study and kind of looking at this corridor in relationship to the wayfinding study. As you can see, it didn't really rise to the top of the wayfinding study. There weren't really any gateways or key secondary or primary gateways identified for the corridor. So this plan doesn't really go heavy into that. That being said, I think there's some placemaking opportunities. There's maybe some more opportunities to do some, whether it's perennial gardens, murals, other types of gateways, treatments besides the ones that are identified in the plan. One of the things I thought was kind of interesting is looking at the history there, and State Highway 22 from Apple Tree Lane through town was, in fact, part of the Yellowstone Trail back in the day. And there's a coalition of cities and communities across the state that kind of promote the Yellowstone Trail as kind of a tourism type of trail, and different communities pick it up. And I saw just over in Greenville, this was, I think, just last year, that they had some folks at, was it Greenville? Somewhere around there, had gotten together and painted a few rocks and started to kind of showcase the Yellowstone Trail. So I thought that could be kind of a fun, little sort of playful opportunity to maybe showcase, brand this, corridor a little bit, or talk this up a little bit as something special. Next slide. This was just looking at traffic counts. So there's some pretty decent traffic counts through here, like 55 to 7,300 average annual daily traffic counts, which is pretty comparable, if not a little bit higher than the downtown, but then obviously less, considerably less than Fulton Street as the main kind of regional retail center. But it does have good traffic counts still, even though State Highway 22 has been bypassed out of there, suggesting that it's still a good location for business. So we kind of packaged this up into some goals based on the public survey. We had about 160 responses, which is phenomenal. This being Waupaca, I knew we'd get good turnout, but I thought that was a phenomenal response. Most of those responses were people from the city, but a lot of people, talked about, some goals, attracting, retaining businesses, promoting more infill, improving walking and bicycling, improving access to the school campuses. Cary Pond, as I mentioned before, seemed to resonate as something that people felt really strongly about, trying to address long-term in this corridor. So we came up with a few ways to kind of tackle that. So these kind of divided up into a few 6 different strategies, which I'll just go through here in the next couple slides. These are some snapshots from the survey response. Again, those are kind of interesting. They pinpoint some specific areas that people had concerns with, or opportunities where people thought the traffic could be improved, as well as some different types of businesses and things that folks would like to see in the area. Yeah, we can keep going here. So one of the first, this first strategy sort of revolves around potentially reconfiguring Churchill Street. So this would be like the initial step in the process to look at this from a planning level perspective. It's easy to come up with these ideas and draw pretty pictures, but one of the key first steps here would be for the city to do some type of traffic study, engineering, mobility study, traffic study, which I think could be scoped out pretty easily, taking some of the language from the plan here. The idea with the road, with reconfiguring Churchill Street, the idea is since Churchill Street is not up for reconstruction in the short term, just through, there could be a potential in the short to medium term to restripe the street, essentially do a road diet, which a bunch of other communities have done. That's basically where you take about 4 travel lanes, typically it's 2 in each direction, and you you add 2 bike lanes, and then you go from 2 lanes traveling in each direction to 1 lane traveling in each direction with a dedicated center turn lane. In Appleton, they just did this on College Avenue downtown as a 1-year temporary project. So they're actually studying this. But some of the benefits potentially for Churchill Street would be to provide better bicycling conditions. Another potential benefit could be to provide some traffic calming. Another benefit is reducing the distance that school children and other walkers have to make across traffic. When you go across the street, going across 2 lanes of traffic is a lot safer than going across 4. So those are some of the benefits. some of the cons, potentially take away parking, although people don't really park on this street too much now. That's probably would be the number one con of change. And besides, people don't like change, so that's in general, so that would probably be another negative. If you go to the next slide, I'll just show you some options. So these were just some visual representations of what this section could look like if the road diet was feasible. There's at least 3 different options here. The one on the left that I basically was describing with the is that one where the cursor is over. The one, and with that one, you basically would have the bikes on the street there in their own bike lane. The one in the middle, which would be more of a longer term option because that would actually narrow the street up a little bit. With there, the idea is you put in a side path and you get the bicycles off the street, and the bicycles are essentially in a side path condition with sharing that wider sidewalk with pedestrians. And that third option on the right is that with some bays of parking dropped into it. So again, those options in the middle and on the right would be more long-term options. The option on the left would be something you could basically do with some paint. Fairly straightforward paint job. So that was one of the strategies, or I guess, or key recommendations was to take a look at the road diet. And the first step in that would be to do, as I mentioned, a traffic study that would take a look at not only the feasibility of doing this, but also the feasibility of implementing some of the biking and walking recommendations in the report. And also looking at obviously opportunities to improve congestion and access to and from the school campus. We also looked in terms of development, looked at, what are some sites along this corridor, short-term, medium-term, long-term, where we could redevelop, look for opportunities to redevelop, look for opportunities to do some infill. And obviously, all of these are sort of subject to lots of things that are beyond the city's control, but it does help at least to initiate a discussion on the future. And as projects and opportunities avail themselves, this is, can be a planning tool. So just at a very high level, the number one over there is that Agape, I believe that's that Agape site. It's currently... the city's probably well aware of all the background stuff behind that site, so I don't need to go into that. But I think that could be a really nice location, whether it's another little commercial kind of strip center plaza like Crystal Plaza, or whether it's housing. I mean, it's a nice site. It's a decent location. It's close to the river. It's got great access to Highway 10. It's near the schools. So I think could be a in the realm, the scheme of things, a shorter term redevelopment opportunity. With Shannock, we did in the blue under adaptive reuse opportunity. In some of the previous, that building that Shannock Foundry is actually listed on, I think, on the state and national historic register. So if there's an opportunity to repurpose that building in the future, it probably should at least be looked at as an option. So we identified that. Number 3 is the school forest. I think that's what we called that property, the school forest. So they own some property there that's isn't really being actively used. And one of our thoughts has been, as we've kind of scoured the city looking for places to put housing, this keeps coming up because there's a potential partner with the school, or it's under public control, but also just from a proximity to this school standpoint, we think it could be a really desirable location for housing. Number 4 was the Nelson's Garage. Looking long-term at that property, if it was ever to change hands, or if the owners were ever to sell, we thought that given the size of that parcel and the location right in the middle of the district and the proximity across from Hinder, it just could be a exciting redevelopment opportunity. And it's a big enough parcel you could, I believe it's over an acre, that you could explore some different options for that. And then number 5 is the one where we actually dove in and kind of did some test fits and started to test some ideas. That's the former Ruby's Pantry site, which I'll kind of go into. And then I didn't key out, the 2 block, the areas that are there on Churchill, down towards School Street or Riverside Drive. I didn't really key out the, one of those is the hut, and then there's another parcel across the street. Those are still in one of the, there's still a productive business there, but long-term, if those were to come up for sale, again, those might be some other good opportunities to support. So that kind of goes through and sort of went over that strategy of kind of reuse and redevelopment just now. This were a couple of concepts I'll talk through, and could be some comments on these. So this was the former Ruby's Pantry. I just called it former Ruby's Pantry newspaper printer site. Developed a couple different options here. And basically, this is utilizing 3 or 4 different properties. So not only the former Ruby's properties, but then the adjacent property. There's a little tiny CPA office, I believe auditor office in one of the parcels there fronting Churchill Street. It's in an old house. And then to the north of that, towards Dollar General, there's was a little pole barn that used to be a little ammunition factory. Yeah, that's so as I can describe it. That one I believe is up for sale. So you've got majority of the site, is either underutilized or up for sale, or potentially up for sale. So we did a couple test fits looking at what you could do with those 3 parcels. And we did in such a way that you could develop this in phases too, so it kind of respects some of the property lines there. This initial concept is more residential oriented here, and it keeps that existing building to the south, so it's got the little gray roof. Maybe that pantry gets re-envisioned, reimagined. If the pantry could find a suitable alternate location, that could be a really nice site for another restaurant within the corridor that's been discussed. That could be a nice complementary use to H.H. Hinder. And then what we did is we tried to just play around with some different options for housing. So if you look on 10th Street, we've got some little side-by-side duplexes there, or townhomes. Those could be, structured in such a way to kind of, mimic more of the massing and the single residential homes on 10th Street. And then looking towards Churchill Street, we've got 2-story stacked flats. So these could be like multi-unit apartment buildings, but they could be probably a little lower density, so more of a walk-up condition where everybody would have their own separate entrance, not an elevated building. And something that would be in similar, size to the other 2-story apartment buildings that are already located up and down Churchill Street corridor. And then that's what those are, and I think we had those that are roughly about 20 units each. And then up towards Churchill Street, we've reserved a couple, carved out a few commercial spaces there that could be around 2,000 square feet. Those could be done as little separate buildings. That could be done as a mixed-use building together. But the idea would be to provide a little bit of retail commercial space, fronting Churchill Street. So these are just some kind of precedent images of some, projects from around the state, just kind of showing, general kind of feel, character of what, could go in there. And then this concept is, does a little bit more on the left. I'll just kind of start towards the 10th Street side. It's got a little bit more residential in there, more of a cottage kind of pocket neighborhood concept. With some townhomes, 3 little townhomes snuck in there. And then it's got the, rather than kind of doing the mixed-use thing with the 2 multi-unit apartment buildings, it's got a couple of those stacked flat apartment buildings and then a commercial space in the middle. And the idea here would be, this layout, or either one really, but one of these layouts not only could, where it says residential or commercial there, this could be either residential driven, or it could be a hospitality driven project. These footprints would be similar to like a smaller boutique hotel that could provide rooms, not just for general tourists, but also, I think there's probably a market for contract workers that are working at the hospital, working in town, as well as, so there could be a kind of a short-term rental or boutique hotel option here as well as residential. Again, just some kind of different images, some different examples from Wausau. That bottom right photo is a little infill project City of Wausau partnered with some developers on, doing some urban infill along one of their corridors. Strategy number 3 was kind of getting back to the biking and walking plan. So the strategy here was, if the city did want to take a look at that road diet, there could be a potential to bring bike lanes all the way connecting Apple Tree Lane all the way up to Royalton, all the way up Badger Street to the rec center. And then you could jog off and put bike lanes on Lake Street over to Main Street and kind of help fill some of those gaps in that River Edge Trail network that you have, and provide a pretty nice biking accommodation between some of your major parks and schools and rec centers, as well as the high school, the walking trail. The wayfinding and branding plans, you already sort of have that plan in place. So again, this is an opportunity to kind of execute that plan and roll it out. And you can keep going to the next page there. But one of the things I wanted to just, key in on too is just, thinking about some of the placemaking partnerships. Let's see, I got a partnerships. I got a typo up there. One of the, I think you guys have done such an amazing job with a lot of the placemaking initiatives that you've done downtown, whether it's the public art or some of the murals, the bike racks, the mini murals, the rain gardens, et cetera, that, those same types of partnerships could be put in place perhaps with some of the major employers over here and or the arts community to do some relatively low-cost beautification stuff in the short term while some of these other projects gain momentum. The front cover of the report, where I had the Waupaca mural on the side of that Public Works building, that was kind of taken as my inspiration from that is Minocqua, which I go up there every summer with my kids camping up at Crystal Lake for the last 20 years, and we always pass that sign, and I always say to myself, this is such a nice welcome to Minocqua. Why don't we do this in Waupaca? So I thought that, again, could be kind of a fun way to welcome people into the community. And these are all relatively low-cost kind of things that the city's got experience doing. This one, in some ways, I imagine would probably be the most controversial maybe recommendation in this report. And it's really looking at the future of the Cary Mill Pond. I guess what we tried to do here is not be too prescriptive and say, we should turn this back into a free-flowing, Class 1 trout stream with bike trail, with fishing trails and birding platforms. And on the one hand, and on the other hand, we're not saying this is going to become the next, fully restored, pond. The idea here would be, for the city to take a look at. There's a couple things. One would be to start learning from and investigating, some of the potential for doing a naturalization of the Mill Pond. A lot of other communities in Wisconsin have done it. Wisconsin's the #1 leader in dam deconversions. River Falls is in the process of decommissioning a couple of their mill ponds. I worked on that one a couple of years ago, but that whole process took like 15 years. But it starts with kind of a discussion of what you want for the future. Another short-term, another option for this in the short term is to look at, do what you've done with some of your other lakes and develop a aquatic management plan to either treat some of those aquatic invasives mechanically or with herbicides, or to look at other techniques like dredging or other techniques to get a handle on some of the algae growth in the short run. Anyways, that's kind of the recommendation here is to kind of take a look at both of those, and then long-term see what the appetite is for potentially restoring this river. And I think that might be the last strategy. Yeah, a little bit of implementation stuff. Those are some of the key recommendations I've already kind of talked through. So I'll stop talking and see if there's any questions or comments from the audience.
Andrew, thanks. Yeah, Henry, go ahead.
Does the planning, does the planning area pretty much mimic our TIF boundaries there? Are they close?
That's a great question. So the planning area does not. The planning area is much bigger than our TIF boundaries. But one area that does is really these, I might have overshot it. These concept plans, that is a very small TIF. TIF 12 is very small. So I would say it focuses really on this redevelopment opportunity that's on the screen now, along with across the street. It does encompass like Nelson's facility there as well.
And will this next year is where we'll receive our first tax increment? 2025, right? Because we created it 23, right?
That's correct, but there hasn't been any improvement, so we don't have any tax increment expected.
Or I guess, excuse me, we have a base value. Okay. So we really don't have any funds within the TID to really start chipping away at some of this stuff. We'll have to, if we want to do anything, we'll have to discuss it with the capital plans and that kind of thing, right?
Yeah, in my eyes, I think taking like these concept plans and promoting the opportunity within TIF 12 to potential developers, if you can get guaranteed value added based off of this, then a development agreement could come forward because of it. That would be the route, I think.
Well, and I think we would all agree, but especially the development review team felt like Churchill Street is a gem that we haven't really taken advantage of it, but also the people and the businesses that are on Churchill Street have not taken advantage of it either. So it really is going to take a private-public synergy to make this thing work. Yeah, we don't expect any growth in that TIF 12 either, do we? I mean,
No, there's no projects on the horizon
at this time.
No.
Yeah, I should have looked, I'm sorry, I didn't do that, but the Agape building, is that in the TID? No, it's too far south.
Right. And I'm glad you're asking these questions because just the reason that it didn't extend further than we do have it is because of the 12% rule. And we were limited by that. So we could only really tackle a priority area, and to us, some of these old industrial uses and changing that, converting it to our future land use was a priority.
Yeah, so what is being presented, which is awesome, I mean, Andrew put a lot of time and effort into this, and I think it's going to be very helpful for us in the future, but I think he hit right on it too when we were looking at there isn't a road project that's going to be going through there. Remember what happened on Main Street and how that made everybody else on Main Street want to do something. Well, we don't have that ability over there, but we do have the ability to do some surface level type things, and like Andrew said, by just using some paint, putting up some trees and designating some areas and stuff like that too. So, I mean, it's good to have a plan, obviously.
Sure.
So that's where we're at with this.
Is that excuse me, is that technically a state route? It's 22? No, it's a connector, right? Is that what would be classified as a connector?
I believe it's
Used to be,
collector functionality.
So there's some DOT grant programs we should be thinking about.
Yep.
Which I'm sure Greg's probably looking into that.
But, you know, and.
To help
and-
execute this, and having a good plan is certainly going to be helpful.
Sorry, Henry, I didn't
No,
mean
sorry.
to-
Go ahead.
That speaks to the discussion that we're having too. And we will have to have this with the council too, is that we need to prioritize what projects that we're gonna do when you start talking about road programs within the city too. And is Churchill Street the next one? Or is it Fulton Street? Or is it some other street that we haven't talked about? So, yeah, I mean, that goes along with that. But in the meantime, we'd still like to do something in that area.
Can you go to page 123, please? I think that's the page. And can you zoom in on Riverside Drive right there a little bit? I've often wondered, because traffic is so bad with the 3 schools in there, if there's ever been any talk of making that connect to Churchill. What would that take?
I bring it up all the time internally.
It's,
But Justin would be probably the best. It's actually not even road. You can see there, that's not even our property, for one, that connected, so it's not road right away, but I'll kick it over to you.
You know, at one time it was,
It
for us
did-
old fogies here and in the council that have lived here a long time, but I'll let Justin talk about it too. But that was an open road, and
It
what
did-
happened was Shannick, the owner of the dam, came in and actually closed it down, saying, hey, that's our property. And that's why it's been closed all these years. So, Justin.
I got nothing more to add, because that's exactly what happened.
Sorry.
It's fine.
Didn't
But
mean to steal your
the
thunder.
dam is operational, correct?
Yes, and privately held.
And so the buildings aren't, integral to the operation of the dam then? They're kind of freestanding, that they could possibly be redeveloped? Or that you'd have to have something happen with that dam? I don't know enough about the work. It doesn't matter.
I think
That's all right.
it depends
We're
on the
getting into
building,
woods
I
now.
think. There are separate buildings with separate
Yeah.
uses.
Any other comments or questions? Colin, go ahead.
Yeah, I like a lot of people talk about bike routes through the city, and you talked about a road diet on Churchill Street. The mayor just referenced striping and whatnot. I guess my question is related to biking. Why not send bicyclists on parallel routes to Churchill instead of down the main drag? For me, if I was riding my bike, I would not want to ride down Churchill. I'd opt probably for 8th Street. There's no stop-and-go lights, there's no lights, and there's significantly less traffic. So if we're going to wayfind or route bicycles, why not use, instead of our main corridors that are parallel to it?
Go straight over.
And then Fulton is another one where, Union is just parallel to it. I mean, in the future, I think we'll look at opportunities there. But including a bike lane on Fulton, although it might be neat for guys who can go 20 miles an hour on their bike,
uphill.
The other average person would probably do better on Union Street.
Yeah, I certainly would agree with the sentiment of, looking for those opportunities where you have them, where you can do, a bike route, a bike path, just parallel to a busier, collector or arterial street. So I definitely think there's merit in thinking about that. I think the bigger idea here of trying to connect these destinations and kind of fill in the gaps of your trail network and this bigger river edge trail system you have, I think is important, and I think it's a neat opportunity to do it in this corridor. But whether that's off, maybe that's on 10th Street or one street to the, or parallel, that could be an option, and in that case, maybe you don't even need to put bike lanes on this street. So that I think that would be something to maybe consider. I know, one of the reasons they have, have it like with the bike ped plan, they put it, on Churchill, I think is because it does provide that direct access to those businesses and destinations along there, because that is kind of the route that people tend to take, if you're going between downtown and Waupaca. It's just the, closest line, shortest path between 2 points. One of the benefits, but I don't know that I would argue really strongly just from a bike connectivity standpoint that it has to be on Churchill, because I don't think it does. I do think the road diet provides some other benefits, that are worth, taking, thinking through as well, because, with that striping and narrowing down of the lanes, reducing the number of lanes, that can also help achieve some other queuing issues, pedestrian safety issues with kids getting back and forth to school, rear end crashes, things like that. It can have some benefits on as well besides the bicycle benefit. But in terms of the bicycle network, yeah, I mean, maybe, just have, maybe it's offset by a block or something. I don't think that's the end of the world. I did think it was kind of a neat idea running it up Badger Street. It doesn't appear to me, as many times as I've driven in and out of the city, I usually like to pick a different route each time, but I've gone up Badger Street a lot. It doesn't seem like people park on that street a ton, so that wouldn't be as huge of an issue as it is in some places when you start talking about this stuff. I think Badger Street could be a nice, connector for kids and people on bikes, getting down to that Churchill Street corridor. But again, once you got to the corridor, do the bikes have to be on Churchill? Could they be like one block off? Yeah, I think so, maybe.
Corey, go ahead.
And I guess I'd like to go back to Eric's comment about the Shoemaker-Churchill intersection at 2 times during the day when school is starting and ending. That's just a nightmare to navigate through. So really for, the diets and stuff like that, that's all fine, but I think that we would have to see, is that going to improve that intersection there? Because if it doesn't, it makes it worse. To me, that we're not really gaining anything. And, I don't know if it would be feasible. I know people don't like them, but, if that's a spot for a roundabout to keep traffic moving, I don't know. But boy, that intersection is really, really challenging in the morning and the afternoon.
Man after my heart. You know how many times we've said roundabout there. Yeah. But we all, even if you don't have kids or grandkids that are going to that school, we all know about that. And that, I think it gets policed really well, considering the amount of traffic that goes through there, and we're lucky that we have it under control. But I agree, it could be improved. Can we do a turn lane in the middle? Does that help? Because that road is so wide. I mean, there are other options that we could explore right now, too. I mean, I have no idea what a roundabout costs, but a roundabout would be cool. I shouldn't say that. I'm up for re-election, but the roundabout is pretty cool. But it's not in our budget at this time either. So if we're looking at short-term gains there, we have to look at other ways of doing that.
You talk about that being a 4-lane, but really nobody uses it. You don't see cars side by side. They always, I'm looking at page 112. That's how they drive. They drive right down the center.
Right.
So it's not like you got 2 cars next to each other. So it's not really a true 4-lane. Nobody treats it as a 4-lane.
Yeah, it's very confusing. The lanes are poorly marked. It doesn't say parking, doesn't say non-parking. I think it's kind of just confusing, and people tend to stick towards the middle naturally. So you could probably argue that, for or against doing the road diet, depending on which, side you want to take. I mean, on the one hand, it might not be that big of a change for people to see the striping out there because they're driving in those 2 lanes anyways.
Well, again, history would tell you that used to be a US highway and then it was a state highway for many years, and 4 lanes made sense. And they were used as 4 lanes and striped as 4 lanes at one time.
See a lot
long
more.
time.
Yeah, and you see a lot more cities doing stuff with paint, to help define these lanes and make things a little safer appearing. I will say, regarding, the roundabout or whatever the solution is, but, at that intersection, one of the benefits of doing a little study like this is, I think we've sussed out what some of these key issues and opportunities are, and I think kind of doing that engineering or traffic study, can take a look at all this stuff together and not just independently. So we want them to look at, exactly what Corey was saying, you want it to look at the road diet as, and these other potential interventions at the same time and see how they would interact or complement each other. So I think that's going to provide a lot of direction going forward there.
And I think obviously Andrew's looking for feedback, and I mean, staff is looking for feedback on this too, and that's why we commissioned to have this done too, because we think it's something that needs an improvement. And we're hoping that we have a plan moving forward with that. Did I see somebody else with a hand up?
I was just going to say, because of the school campuses, it seems like the school district would be open to a discussion on trying to solve this challenge. Maybe you got to acquire a few properties along there. It's part of it. And with the relationships we've built, the staff's been able to build through the past years, maybe there's some improvements the school district can participate in. I don't know if that's too big of a lift or not. Since we all serve many of the same public, maybe there's an opportunity to jointly fund something.
Scott, you had something to say?
I just want to go back to the holistic picture and thank the people involved with thinking about this corridor in Churchill Street, because realistically, it's one of the 2 main corridors into our city, the other one being Fulton, as far as I'm concerned. I know we have K coming in, but the major part of people coming in are either Churchill or there, and I think it's a great opportunity. I would hope we as a city really keeps us on the front burner, like Henry said, maybe acquiring properties or just really don't push it back too far, because I think there's a great opportunity there, because it's the next big place we could improve our city. So I'd be in full support of really doing what we can.
Thanks, Scott. Anybody else?
Yeah, I've got something.
Yeah, go ahead, Dimitri.
So I'm wondering if we reclaimed Cary Pond, where that dam is, there's a Riverside Drive that cuts around to the east. Would we be able to maybe connect that into Churchill and somehow alleviate some of the school traffic by having 2 means to get in or out?
Justin, do you want to explain that again? I mean, sorry.
Well, if you think fixing roads is expensive, try building a brand new one. I'm not sure if I quite understand it, Dimitri, but are you saying somehow connect to the school further to the east, but coming off of Churchill Street where the dam's at?
Yeah, I'm saying where the dam's at, if that would be able to, Churchill would be able to connect right into that Riverside Drive, and then people could access the school coming as they're driving north on Churchill and get into the school area off of Riverside Drive. They could also then as they're heading south on Churchill, they'd go, like they always have, but to provide 2 means of entry and exit into the school area might be a way to deal with some of the traffic issues.
So Justin, I think when he first asked the question, he asked if we reclaimed it, would that be a possibility?
Okay.
And I think the answer is yes.
Well, so the number of cars coming in and out won't change. I know you have a second entry point, but you still have the same number of potential conflicts, but just at a different location further down the road. So I don't think acquiring that and making that second entry point there is going to make much improvements. You're still going to have to take a right turn as you hit Schumacher Road, and the people who have turned left off of Churchill Street, you will then have to wait for them because now you're stopped at a stop sign. So I don't think there's much to gain with that configuration.
Anything else, Dimitri? I'm sorry.
My only other thought was the Crystal River. If the river flows where the Cary Pond is, and some of that land can be used for other purposes, then maybe we could have a bike path that would wind along the river, maybe connecting over to Berlin Street.
Yeah, good thought. Colin, you had your hand up again, too.
I guess I got two questions. The one was, you have a second intersection, it looks like Harding and Royalton Street, you have an X on as a potential intersection improvement. And then as we were just talking about this mill pond, something that's crossed my mind a couple of times is if that dam is gone, does that change would that force a change to the elevation of Shadow or Mirror Lake?
I think those are great questions.
Yeah, those are all, I think these are all the great questions to, I mean, hopefully with this plan, if it does, foster continued discussion around this issue, because this really kind of somewhat came out of the blue at us. I don't think we were anticipating so much discussion on Cary Pond, but, looking at this in more detail going forward, I think would be the next step to start answering some of those questions.
Eric, go ahead.
I would actually jump in and say, if I remember correctly, that Cary Pond was drained for a while. Was that about 20 years ago? Something like that. But I don't recall there having been any significant noticeable change to the water level. So I would guess the answer would be
No. Cool.
Thanks, Eric. Our library historian.
Yeah, that was good. I remember that now they say that. Mayor, do you mind if I just touch on something?
Yeah, go ahead.
So just to kind of wrap it up, and I don't mean to cut it off. If there are other questions, please ask them. But the mayor mentioned something before, and he mentioned the whole Churchill Street corridor, where's the priority compared to things like Fulton Street? We just went through a strategic planning process in July of 2023. Fulton Street came up a lot. Internally, we have conversations. Fulton Street is our capital plan priority internally right now, and in our plan, it is noted as such. I just want to mention, Andrew talked about Appleton doing pilot programs. The Main Street project was in the planning process, 7 to 10 years prior to anything happening, and there was pilot programs done with the backing and angle parking and things like that. So not only that, but as private redevelopment happens, maybe prior to a big infrastructure project, we want to make sure it has synergy with potential future infrastructure projects. So.
All right, anybody else? Andrew, thank you.
All right, thank
again
you
for the
guys.
presentation.
Yeah. Thanks, Andrew.
Have a safe trip back. All right, next up, we have taxi fare increase. Stephanie, you want to just present that?
You bet. Thank you.
Please.
My report starts on page 136 of your council packet. Heading into the new contract with increased rates has driven us to evaluate our current customer pricing to ensure that the transit fund and the shared ride taxi service can maintain financial stability in 2024. It is recommended to increase fare rates. As stated in the public hearing, the rate increases would go into effect on February 1st, 2024. There's a table in the packet that illustrates those changes. In addition to the increase in rider fares, we are proposing an increase in agency fares. This increase was not part of the public hearing as it was not required. And that table is listed there as well. We do have Justin running here from Brown Cab, so if you have any questions, he'd be happy to answer as well. And the staff is recommending to approve the proposed fare increases as outlined in the tables above.
Thank you, Stephanie. Justin, I think you wanted to introduce yourself, and so we'll give you that opportunity. Go ahead.
Sure. Excuse me. My name's Justin Running. I'm with Brown Cab. We operate the taxi service here. I wanted to come tonight. Aaron had mentioned that this was going on, fare increases. Sometimes there's questions. So I thought I'd be happy to answer any questions anybody has. I don't know if you want me to do a brief overview, but kind of, how the system has been running the last few years. We had some challenges from 2020 on through now in terms of staffing and ridership, and we've seen some dip in ridership, which caused some probably revenue reductions, which is part of why we're looking at the fare increase. But I think, I was looking at projections statewide, what we're seeing in our transit systems, ridership starting to come back after that. Last year, we were under hours, under the contracted hours that could have been provided here as a result of lower staffing. We've been able to retain some more staff, hire some folks. So we're hoping things, continue on a positive trend which we've seen. But primarily just happy to answer questions if anybody has any.
Thanks, Justin. Go ahead, Paul.
We had a gentleman here a while back who used the taxi service quite extensively, and one of his comments was that people are rather underpaid. They're like $10.75 an hour, something like that, starting out. Is there any talk about increasing that so that you don't have, or that you have less problems with staffing?
Absolutely, and that was one of the things that we had actually talked with staff on prior to the end of the year. There was some discussion from them as a result of the same thing, right? We've seen a lot of wage inflation, so I'm sure you noticed in the bid, it is a higher bid, and the big result of that is the intended increase in drivers' wages. We actually have a staff meeting in our office next Tuesday to review all of that, and we'll be doing raises probably within the next week that folks will see substantial increases here.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else have any questions? So Justin is also in the political view too. He is the mayor of Waupaca.
I am. This has been a wonderful little while sitting here. I'm learning we're not the only ones.
Don't critique us too
Right.
bad.
We just did a road diet in Viroqua, so if you want any feedback on that, reach out. I'd be happy to share my opinion. So.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, if you remember, Stephanie's staff has recommended that we approve the rate increases, so we need a motion to approve those.
I would make that in the form of a motion.
Motion
second.
Motion by Hagan, second by Peterson, that we, sorry, I lost my spot here now, that we increase the taxi fare rates by what's listed on page 136 of your packet. Any further discussion? Barbara, call the roll.
Dave Peterson,
Aye.
Henry Veliker,
Aye.
Eric Olson.
Aye.
Colin Dykstra,
Aye.
Paul Mayo,
Aye.
Paul Hagan,
Aye.
Scott Perchatsky,
Aye.
Dimitri Martin,
Aye.
Corey Nagel,
Aye.
9 ayes, motion carried.
All right. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, Justin.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Yes.
Thanks, Justin.
Safe travels. All right, next up, Mount Tom Booster Pump Station Backup Generator Purchase. Mr. Behrens.
Thank you, Mayor. My memo was seen on page 137 of the packet, followed by a bunch of information in regards to a backup generator we'd like to purchase at the Mount Tom site. So I got to give you a little background on our system in order to, I guess, fully explain this. So Mount Tom is important to our system. It's kind of the center point. It separates our high zone from our low zone. Basically, the high zone and low zone is more of a topography thing. So we have to have them kind of separated, or else the low zone would be so high extreme pressure because water would be pushing downhill. So it's basically two separate water systems in one. One of the connecting points is at this Mount Tom site, where we have two pumps up there which can pull water from one of our water towers in the high zone and push it from the low zone into the high zone. Now the high zone only has 2 of our 7 wells on it, while the low zone has the remaining 5. And all of our wells have, or I should say majority of our wells have the backup power at them right now. So if power goes out, our wells should be able to run and keep the low zone certainly full of water. There is a question though with the high zone being the only the 2 wells there, if there would be an issue there, how could we get water to the north half of our city? And that's where this backup generator comes into play with these booster pumps. They would not have power in an outage, so we're looking to purchase a generator and get one set there. So when we first came up with this project a couple years ago, we did have a pretty hefty budget, and over the years we have increased it with inflation, but it listed in our capital plan for $170,000. The reason for that is because we thought we were going to need to build a brick and mortar structure, something like 20 by 15 up there, to house this generator along with IT equipment in our SCADA system. And since we've worked through this certainly last year, what we had planned for our SCADA system has changed. We're not making such robust improvements with that program or that project. And then the decision to move the IT stuff over from a different HUD at Mount Tom to here, we decided against that again because of cost. So we're looking at this thing, why do we need this building if we're not going to do these other improvements? And then it was actually Jesse Landry in wastewater said, why don't you just do an outside backup generator like we did at Cover Bridge Lift Station? And of course, that's when we decided to pivot, because you can see as I broke down the budget, what we planned for a backup generator in this project was $50,000. So we can pretty much eliminate all those other things and save quite a bit of money. So again, looking at the Cover Bridge Lift Station backup generator, we went through the Sourcewell process or the cooperative purchasing agreement. We got a Kohler generator through Total Energy Systems. We have a number of our newer generators are Kohlers, and with that purchase in 2020, we're kind of going through the same process and having a generator that would be very similar to the one that is over there. So meaning there is a familiarity with the components, the parts, the maintenance, that sort of thing. So with this, we would be way under budget. We would need a little bit more money, though, to finish it, a new concrete base, some electrical work to get it to connect and make sure it powers when power does go out, and then some improvements to the gas meter. One thing we did look at, we did get a quote to compare a diesel versus a natural gas. We have a natural gas service up there, which would require some improvements, but when we add it all up, the natural gas would be a few $100s less money than a diesel, and a little bit more reliable, as we would not have to ensure that the diesel tank is full. Natural gas is just always there. So from page 140 on is the specs for the generator. Again, this is through that Sourcewell process. And the discounts you can see are shown on 143 and 144. So going through this cooperative purchasing agreement, we're saving around $16,000 versus, I guess, just buying it off the shelf. And the actual quote itself is on page 145, excuse me. And then, of course, there is some more specifications and information that engineers like me like to look at. So anyways, I guess I will open it up to questions, comments, or looking for an approval to purchase this backup generator through Total Energy Systems for the amount that's listed of $46,440.31. Knowing the other little improvements would be just handled by staff because they would not exceed where we'd need to come back and get approval.
Okay, any questions? Go ahead, Scott.
I presume with your comment of a lead time of almost a year, that price is still locked in when we say okay, even though it may not come for a year or 3/4 of a year?
Correct. So the lead time, yes, is very long. That's why another reason why we did this is because we could get a quick turnaround. I got this quote within 3 days. Okay. And of course, we get this approval within a week. The price is guaranteed until February. So if we would not approve it tonight, I have to, redo the process.
I'm just saying with the lead time, all of a sudden, they build it 50 weeks from now, they're still locked into that price. It may cost more 50 weeks from now if we would bid it then, But I just want to make sure our price is locked in.
Yep, once we put the order in upon approval, then the price is locked.
All right.
Henry, go ahead.
Is our passage of our procurement ordinance need to happen before we authorize this purchase, not to make it complicated?
Nope.
Good question. It doesn't because we're using Sourcewell.
Okay.
It's a cooperative purchasing agency.
Okay, and so that's called out in our current ordinance.
Correct.
Thanks, Henry. Yeah. Eric, go ahead.
What do you get with the training? You get somebody that comes in and trains you on it? $4,000 for training?
Right.
Hit the on switch.
Right, so that's a little bit of a bone of contention with the staff. To have a technician come out is like a minimum of $2,000 through these companies. And I'm surprised you didn't pick up on the comprehensive warranty, but that is also in there, which did come into play with Covered Bridge. We did have to have a technician come out. It costed us $0. If we did not have that comprehensive warranty, it would have costed us over $2,000, like I said. But yeah, they come here for a full day. They go on the ins and outs of everything, fluids, the specs, how to operate it, how to maintain it, what to look for, what to listen for, that sort of thing. So.
Okay, any other questions? Don't forget that you have your other caps on right now too. This is a water utility purchase, so it's coming out of our enterprise fund. Any other questions? Justin is recommending that we purchase this, so we would need a motion to approve.
Motion to approve the purchase of the generator from Total Energy Systems for amount not to exceed $46,431. $46,440.31.
Motion by Colin.
Second.
Second by Scott, that we approve of this purchase. Any further discussion? Barb will call the roll.
Dimitri Martin. Dimitri Martin.
Aye.
Henry Veliker.
Aye.
Eric Olson.
Aye.
Paul Hagan.
Aye.
Dave Peterson.
Aye.
Scott Perchatsky.
Aye.
Colin Dykstra.
Aye.
Paul Mayo.
Aye.
Corey Nagel.
Aye.
9 ayes, motion carried.
All right, Justin, thanks.
Thank you.
Looks like you're still up here, though. We have 2024 Capital Roadway Repave Project.
Yes, sir. I'll keep rolling. The memo for this one is on 150. Goes on to 151 with, again, supporting documents behind that. This is this year's 2024 road project. Aaron, if you could scroll down to 152 and beyond, this shows the graphics of the roads we're looking to replace. So what we're looking at is a pulverize and repave. So a pretty straightforward, simplistic way to redo a road. Basically just grind it up and put it back down new and black. So Hill Street and Southwestern Avenue, south of 10 there. We also have Hardy Trail and Layton Road near Brainerd's Bridge. Next page, please. And then finally, a downtown alley just south of City Hall here. So with this, we did do a sealed bid process, looking for quotes, or for bids, excuse me. Received 3 from the usual suspects, American Asphalt, Northeast Asphalt, and MCC. You can see the bids are included within. I have that listed on the memo and then also attached within, summarizing all 3 together. MCC came in as the low at $219. We worked with them in 2016. We repaved some roads in other places in the city. So we feel comfortable with them. You can see though that number is very low. So now this budget, with inflation, is now swinging the other way for whatever reason. But so being ultra conservative does have its benefits sometimes. So the low bid of Murphy Construction at $219,100, and like most road projects, I am requesting a contingency of, from this one, $10,000, which is a smidgen under 5%. Again, or what this would do would allow us to make changes in the field. So a lot of times you rip off the road, you find a wet spot, a poor spot, we can replace that with good gravel. We can widen, we can add some things that we see pertinent out in the field, but really minor things that should just be done for the long-term integrity of the roadway. I do have a typo on 151 in the requested action, so I'm looking for an award of $229,100. The next line says funding of $219 from the general obligation bonds. Well, obviously that should match. It should be $229,100. So I apologize for that mistake. And one final note, with this being so far under budget, we're going to look at finishing off a few other spots that we'd like to get improved. So going back to Harrison Street, when we did that project, we scaled that project back because of budget reasons. So from, sorry about this. So basically from Granite Street to North Street on Harrison, that's the block we scaled back. We're going to seek a proposal or a quote on redoing or repaving that block, and then I'll bring that back for future approval. And then the alley just east of the one that is within here, again, we'd like to get that one done as well. Only reason why it wasn't in there is because, again, trying to be conservative and trying to make our budgets work. So, and that is all up to council to decide if they want to continue with some of these streets that we'd like to get done. And at the end of it, we would have a remaining of roughly $80,000 for other projects or just to reduce our overall borrow. And again, that's a council decision. So the actual bids are all included for your information and transparency. The MCC one includes their bonding and their insurance, again, for your information. So.
All right, so the ask or the recommendation is to go with MCC of Appleton, an amount of $229,100. Any discussion, motion?
Move to approve.
Second?
Motion by Mayo, second by Olson, that we approve this agreement with MCC of Appleton, Wisconsin, for an amount not to exceed $229,100. Discussion? Henry, go
Just
ahead.
a quick question. The pricing is coming our way in the future, or is it starting to creep?
That's hard to say, Henry. I think for this budget, like I turned my estimate up a lot because I wanted to make sure there was enough to accommodate this, but hopefully it's a sign of things tabling off.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure where the other council members are, but we have a budget, and if we're in a pretty favorable bidding and posture, our roads are important, and if we could, spend a little more money and address some other roads, and I'm sure your staff has been talking about it. I could support spending more, but you did such a good job on your estimation this time. Anyways, that was my comment, Mayor. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Henry. Any other discussion? Barbara, call the roll.
Paul Hagan,
Aye.
Scott Perchatsky,
Aye.
Paul Mayo,
Aye.
Corey Nagel,
Aye.
Eric Olson,
Aye.
Colin Dykstra,
Aye.
Dave Peterson,
Aye.
Henry Veliker,
Aye.
Dimitri Martin,
Aye.
9 ayes, motion carried.
Okay. Justin, thanks.
Thank you.
I think so. Laura, you still on?
I am.
Oh, good. All right, you're up next here. Proposal to move forward with the Musco lighting proposal submitted through source code for Lakeman Field. Laura?
Thank you. Thank you. And Greg Smith is on from Musco Lighting as well. So a little background. Our first phase priorities were estimated for lights of 400,000, infield of 55,000, sound system of 2,000, with a total cost around 475,000. As of today, so a little increase than what's written here, we have $455,250 in private donations and grants, which brings us up to $155,000 above our fundraising goal. So for those of you that have been keeping track, we are going to meet and discuss a phase 2 next week. So in summary of what we're looking at with Musco Lighting, we went through Sourcewell, which was just mentioned with Justin last round. And on page 20 or 227, you can find the quote, Musco Sourcewell quote for $300,000 instead of the $400,000 that we had set aside for the light specifically. This includes both Musco Sports Lighting and Bauer Electric. They're offering this as an in-kind. So we would like to move forward with the proposal from Musco because Musco is going to act as a general contractor for installing the lights. They would work with Bauer Electric and TLC Signs to complete the installation. Musco can install the new lights this spring, which is going to be really great for our entire city budget because the other lights definitely were a huge maintenance issue last summer. And so we can save some money that way, as well as we don't have to worry about those poles toppling down during a bad windstorm. Musco is excited to create a showcase stadium centrally located in Wisconsin to bring future customers to Waupaca to show them the state-of-the-art options. And at the end of the entire the proposal that Musco put together, you can find some links on there, and I can share a link too of that beautiful state-of-the-art lighting. Speaking of state-of-the-art, Musco's package includes their most current lighting system comprised of multicolored lights able to sync to music, and Musco's lights are dark sky compliant. So candela is a term used to describe the glare that comes off the lights. And the amount of candela our current lights give off, which are only at 25% of the recommended luminaries, is going to be more than what Musco's lights will emit when they're installed. In addition to lights, Musco's providing 2 AI cameras. These cameras are located behind home plate and in the outfield, and they switch back and forth regarding when the action is on the field. We can have 2 different options regarding the cameras. One is a free service, or we can charge for live streaming service and obtain 70% of the revenue. You can find more information on the Musco Vision on page 220 of this packet. The package comes with a 25-year warranty, and the city will not receive a bill from Musco for any routine maintenance during these 25 years. So the recommended action is to approve the Musco lighting proposal submitted through Sourcewell. If you are interested in seeing what the lights can do, I do have a link, Aaron, that I can share with you in the chat that you could pull up. It's a short image that will be comparable to what we'll have.
Sure. Yeah, let's see it.
Okay. Okay. Should be able to pull it up now. And this is synced music, so it's not just a bunch of blinking lights.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Really cool. All right, Laura, so recommendation is to go with Musco in an amount not to exceed $300,000. And the lights are
Correct.
going to be installed when?
This spring, before the season starts for Lakeman.
Okay. Any comments? Anybody would like to make?
Move to approve.
Motion by Eric Olson.
Second.
Second by Peterson. Sorry, Dimitri. That we approve of entering into an agreement with Musco Vision to put up the lights at Lakeman Field for an amount not to exceed $300,000. Discussion. Aaron, go ahead.
I just want to make one comment. For those who don't know Greg's on screen. He's with Musco. He's actually from Waupaca. This has obviously been a huge community project in which most all of it and more has been donated through the community. Greg, I know, is also seeing this as a community project. He cares about Waupaca, and he wanted to create this kind of showcase in Waupaca so he could bring people here, and I think that's awesome. It's a screaming deal for the amenities that are got. And do you want to make any comments, Greg?
Yeah, I appreciate that, Aaron. I mean, that's definitely the. I've been a Waupaca resident since 2007, and historically, the city of Waupaca has almost go lighting from Swan Park to the middle school, Corn, and the LED upgraded at the football field, which was a previous Musco system. So, we really want to, and we do a lot of work with Rattler, John Kinnear's local, and so it's one of these opportunities that doesn't come around all the time. And Bauer was very gracious to put a nice number to it. I do a lot of work with TLC. They're basically local also, as we all know. And we're really providing the same thing as what you would see at, I'm sure you've been to Fox Cities, seen the Timber Rattlers, whether it's Miller Park or, American Family Field. So it really is going to be a state-of-the-art facility, and we're just happy to be a part of it. I know a lot of people have worked hard to make improvements. It's been a great project from, Beeper donating a scoreboard to what we're looking to do now. So obviously looking forward to doing it and excited to get started.
Yeah, thank you. It is exciting and overwhelming, the amount of donations that we've received, and you can even be talking about a phase 2 already, Laura. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, we're very fortunate and very thankful.
Do we have a guarantee from the Lakemen that they're going to win another Granny, Dave, you think?
Looks like so.
Any other discussion? Barbara, call the roll.
Paul Hagan,
Aye.
Henry Veliker,
Aye.
Scott Perchatsky,
Aye.
Dave Peterson,
Aye.
Paul Mayo,
Aye.
Dimitri Martin,
Aye.
Corey Nagel,
Aye.
Eric Olson,
Aye.
Colin Dykstra.
Aye.
9 ayes, motion carried.
All right, thank you. Next up, we have, where am I? Oh, Laura, the program fees, the 2024 program fee increase.
Yes, thank you. So as a background, it's been a number of years since the Parks and Rec Department increased fees for our programming. In fact, the last time was in 2015 when we took on ActiveNet, and the increase was really only intended to cover the transaction fees, which equate to about $3 per registration. So Leslie and I wanted to take a really big deep dive into what it costs us to run programs, what we're charging, and how those align. And so that's what I'm presenting to today. Out of 13 of our spring and summer programs, we're looking to increase the fees for 11 of them. And out of 8 fall and winter programs, we're looking to increase 5 of them. Although we're still not breaking even on some of our programs, we understand that the city subsidizes on some of our programs, and the township's youth program agreement also covers some of these costs. We also understand that any new programs we have need to pay for themselves, and so we keep this in mind when we develop new programs. Lastly, the Parks and Rec Board has vetted these proposed fees in the last 2 Parks and Rec Board meetings, and they've assisted in helping us to create what they think are ideal proposed fees for City Council. So I know this spreadsheet is, I call it the world's ugliest spreadsheet, but let me walk you through the top line. So Aaron, if you want to zoom in to 3-ball sport, that's going to help everybody get a better understanding of how this spreadsheet works. Can you zoom in even further? And I'm just going to walk us across this going right. So you see 3-ball sport, thank you, is highlighted in yellow, and you see the current fee is highlighted in at $32. If you go straight down, we assume that ActiveNet is taking $3 off of the money that we receive. And then you can see that we had 30 participants last year. So 30 times 29 equals that 870 that you see written in red. Now follow me to the right. You can see that we've got about 9 games, and we've got 1.5 hours per class per staff, and we have 4 staff at $10 an hour. So we're going to look at where it starts in green. So you see $540 there. That is how much it costs us to staff the programs. Keep going right. If we pay for a program leader at $11 an hour, that costs $148. Keep going right. If we get every participant t-shirts for $12, that's $360. I added all those light green colors together, which equals $1,048. Now we're going to keep panning over to the right. If we take that $1,048 divided by the 30 participants, we're sitting at $34.95 per participant. Then Leslie and I took a look at all the equipment we use, and we thought, okay, if everybody pays $2 extra, that would probably cover our equipment fees. And then panned over, we re-added the $3 ActiveNet fee. So then our break-even fee, it should actually be $40 for T-ball. So we are proposing raising T-ball to $40 so that would raise our overall increase to $8. So that's how Leslie and I came up upon all of these fees for all of these programs. I'm not going to dissect everything like that because now hopefully you get a better understanding of the nuances of the spreadsheet. But you can see how we have some minimal increases and then some little bigger ones. So for example, we're really not breaking even in Babe Ruth and Legion. So we raised each of those by $25. If you go all the way down on the bottom of the spring summer, we are increasing men's softball by $75, which is a larger increase than all the rest. But the Parks and Rec Board really believed that the men's softball teams could get sponsorship or help pay for themselves. It's not like a youth program. So that is that's the spring summer. And then the next page is on page 232. That's our winter fall. We did notice that men's basketball, we were really losing a lot of money. In order to break even, we'd have to increase the fees by a dramatic amount. So we are not going to break totally even in men's basketball. But if you look at how we make a profit in women's volleyball, co-ed volleyball, and pickleball, we're still with all of our adult programming in winter and fall, we are still breaking even. What questions do you have?
So Laura, this is the mayor. Just one question that I have that I'm thinking about right now. Have you I know you ran this past your board, but have you also ran this past the associations that are involved with some of these too, and what was their feelings?
Yep. So soccer and baseball, basketball, and softball boards all agree that we're going to raise all of those programs by, up to up to 42 or 43. Let me get back up there. So $5 increases for those programs. So we're going to go up to $43 for those board associated programs.
Okay. And the adult programs, obviously, they should certainly pay for themselves. So I'm glad to see that you included those in there too.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else have any questions? It might be an ugly spreadsheet, but you put a lot of effort into it, and it's easy to justify and explain to people, so appreciate it.
Thanks. Yeah. We just wanted to be really transparent and make the best decisions based on financing and not, what our gut was telling us or what we hear from people.
I especially like the colors. Any other comments? Anybody want to make a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Corey, second by Eric, that we approve of the 2024 program fee increases for the Parks and Recreation Director, as indicated on page 231 and 232. Any further discussion? Barbara, call the roll.
Colin Dykstra,
Aye.
Paul Hagan,
Aye.
Henry Veliker,
Aye.
Scott Perchatsky,
Aye.
Dave Peterson,
Aye.
Paul Mayo,
Aye.
Dimitri Martin,
Aye.
Corey Nagel,
Aye.
Eric Olson.
Aye.
9 ayes, motion carried.
Laura, thanks.
Thank you.
Next up, temporary extension for municipal prosecutor legal services with Hart Law Office. Aaron, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Smith. Council members, on page 233 of your packet, you'll see a memo. I'll get right to the point. This is a 2-year contract with Hart Law Office. It is set to expire, actually, it was set to expire yesterday. Tom, or Attorney Hart, recently informed me that he actually took another position on the board of directors of Farmer State Bank, and also is going to serve as their legal counsel, which just didn't give him the capacity to also do our prosecution. I want to just be a little more specific. His work with the city of Waupaca has been specifically in the prosecution of traffic citations, which is approximately 10 hours a month. So while given kind of the timing of the notice and the timing of the expiration of the contract, while we search for other proposals, in which we have 2 in currently, we're waiting on another one, he has agreed to have a temporary extension, continue to provide these services through either April 1st or until a replacement is approved by council, the sooner of the two. So this is a recommendation to approve the proposed extension to the current contract between the City of Waupaca and Hart Law Office as attached to this memo.
All right. You heard the recommendation. Do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Second.
Motion by Peterson, second by, I'm sorry, who was over here second? Scott Perchatsky, to extend the agreement with the City of Waupaca and Hart Law Office. Any discussion? Barbara, call the roll.
Eric Olson,
Aye.
Corey Nagel,
Aye.
Dimitri Martin,
Aye.
Paul Mayo,
Aye.
Dave Peterson,
Aye.
Scott Perchatsky,
Aye.
Henry Veliker,
Aye.
Paul Hagan,
Aye.
Colin Dykstra.
Aye.
9 ayes, motion carried.
All right, thank you for that. You know your meeting's getting long when your battery's dying on your laptop. All right, next up, we have a development agreement between the City of Waupaca and River North Cottages LLC. Aaron, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Smith. Council members, on page 238, you'll see a memo that outlines a development agreement between the City of Waupaca and River North Cottages LLC. You may have heard me refer to them as Mosaic in the past. Marissa Downs is here in the audience. Marissa, I have a note here to make sure next time you come, we will have you at the front of the agenda. Thank you for waiting so long. Yeah, there we go. So Marissa, you've seen her in the past a couple times. One when she asked for the option to purchase property for the WIDA development. One when she was awarded the WIDA development, and then recently when we did a CSM to define the area in which the WIDA development is going to happen in River North. This is kind of the last administrative step to get shovels in the ground. Because site plan has actually already been gone through at the Plan Commission level. So attached to this memo, you will see a proposed developers agreement. Ultimately, this one is pretty straightforward. So the city's commitments would be selling the 5.255 acre property, which is defined by that CSM that was recently approved for $1. We would also take over the maintenance of a stormwater retention pond that will serve the project after the developer completes its construction. That will actually be in an outlot that is owned by the city, and then the idea is to have that stormwater retention pond added onto in the future to serve other parts of the development area. From a developer commitment standpoint, they're committing to provide 45 housing units that'll be constructed and administered in accordance with the guidelines for the WIDA 9% tax credit program. Also, construction of the stormwater retention pond, as we already mentioned. Construction and maintenance of a private road that will service the development. So attached to this is a site plan. You'll notice a kind of a U-shaped road that serves the development. They will put in that infrastructure and maintain that infrastructure long-term. And then they are also guaranteeing a minimum of $2 million of increased incremental tax value with this project. One thing that's a little different about WIDA projects is that there is state assessment law that requires that the percentage of assessment is actually reduced percentage-wise because of how the tax credits come into play. So the construction cost is much greater than $2 million, but that $2 million, we believe, falls in line with what we can expect from that assessment. So I think it's the only other thing that it's not on the memo, but I want to note is they are not. It's a great thing. We're getting affordable housing in the community, which every community is scrambling to get across the state and across the country. And B, we're getting it in a development agreement without an ask for pay-go assistance, which is not always the case either with these projects. So I want to thank Marissa for giving us a proposal that has that in mind. Attached is the development agreement along with exhibits and pro formas and site plans. Otherwise, I'd just be asking that City Council consider approving this development agreement as presented.
Okay, you're done. All right, anybody have any questions? No?
Move to approve.
Motion by Mayo,
Second.
second by Veliker, that we approve of the development agreement between the City of Waupaca and River North Cottages LLC. Any other discussion? Obviously, this is a good kickoff to the River North total project that we're hoping will happen too, so we like that too. Colin, did you have some comment?
Yeah, once it's developed, who's going to manage the property?
Marissa, that'd be a good. You've sat here. Go to the mic, because then everyone on TV can hear you. Facebook.
And I can get up for a second. So ACC Management, they're actually a property manager out of Oshkosh. They'll be the property management company. They'll have a manager on site, and they will be there full time. So there will be someone there, and they'll be responsible for taking care of everything.
Okay. Any other questions? All right? Thank you, Marissa. Barb, want to call the roll?
Yep. Colin Dykstra,
Aye.
Paul Hagan,
Aye.
Henry Veliker,
Aye.
Scott Prochatsky,
Aye.
Dave Peterson,
Aye.
Paul Mayo,
Aye.
Dimitri Martin,
Aye.
Corey Nagel,
Aye.
Eric Olson.
Aye.
9 ayes, motion carried.
All right, awesome. Looking forward to the project.
Thanks, Marissa.
All right, next up, license report number 1657, operator's license. We just need a motion to approve these and place them on file. Do we have a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Corey, second by Henry, that we approve the license report number 1657. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against, say no. Motion carried. License report number 1658, taxi cab driver's license. Same thing. We need a motion to approve.
Move to approve. Second.
Motion by Olson, second by Hagan, that we approve license report number 1658. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against,
Aye.
say no. Motion carried. I don't know why. First and last. We already did the presentation by the sister city visitors, communications and recommendations of the mayor. We're not sure yet, but there's a possibility of a special meeting before our February 6th meeting. We'll let you know. We're thinking we might be able to go to February 6th before we actually have that, but there is a possibility that we might have that a week ahead of time. So if you see that, you'll understand. Has to do again with River North and a development agreement out there. So it's a good thing. It's probably better if it's a special meeting, that it sits on its own. So we might even decide to do that even if it works out best anyways. I know nobody likes extra meetings, but this one might warrant that. And the last thing, go Packers,
Yes.
right? Motion by Hagan,
Second.
second by Veliker to adjourn. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Against, motion carried.